China and the United States are actively accusing each other of fueling a new stage of the trade war, which, according to economists, could crash the global economy. The United States president expressed shock at what he called China's unexpected decision to impose large-scale export controls on rare earth metals, accusing China of extreme hostility. However, according to Beijing, it was Washington's expansion of restrictions on Chinese companies that led to increased tensions and forced it to further tighten control over key minerals needed for the production of a wide range of electronics, cars, and semiconductors. Donald Trump stated that he is raising tariffs against China again, and China responded that it will impose restrictions on all other countries that cooperate with Washington. United States Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent warned that China's move could cause enormous damage.
China,
he replied that if this does happen, the United States will be to blame, because they were the ones who started the trade war. Trump quickly reassured everyone, saying he wants to help China, not harm it, that Xi Jinping just had a bad day and will soon cancel everything. But Xi Jinping responded by tightening port fees for American ships transporting goods to China. So far, there's no apparent room for improvement in this trade escalation. But let's analyze together what's actually happening and how all of this might end. My name is Pechiy. Today is October 14th. Let's go through everything step by step. But before we start this episode, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and please leave your comment under this episode. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so with any donation using the links and details in the description of this video. It says there, support Pechiy's channel. Choose any format that is convenient for you. I will be grateful for any support from you. So during a sharp escalation of tensions over the past weekend, Donald Trump stated that he would restore tariffs for China to triple-digit levels, because of new control measures from Beijing, which prompted the Chinese government to promise to take corresponding actions. In short, both sides made it clear that neither would back down first. And if necessary, they're even ready to ruin the economy just to show off their political ambitions. The changes in relations between the world's two largest economies have shaken the markets and caused anxiety in global industry due to food shocks. And of course, they have revived fears of a repeat of mutual tariffs in the spring, when tariffs on Chinese and American imports reached levels equivalent to trade embargoes. The renewed tensions also threaten to undo the progress achieved during months of trade negotiations. And it has cast doubt on the possibility of the planned meeting at the end of October between Chinese leader Xi Jinping and Donald Trump in South Korea. After Trump even suggested that he might cancel the meeting, United States Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said he still expects the meeting to take place. China's Ministry of Commerce also stated that it remains open to negotiations, but at the same time reiterated that the United States cannot seek dialogue while threatening new measures. And here you should prepare yourself for the fact that both the Americans and the Chinese will often say completely opposite things. If Trump says, "I'm canceling the meeting, I don't see the point," Bessent says the meeting is necessary. The Chinese say, well, we're ready for the meeting, but only if Trump cancels some tariffs or his own statements. And this is where things get really interesting. Because according to Chinese experts and analysts, Beijing could have avoided most of the current escalation if Donald Trump's administration hadn't imposed additional restrictions at the end of September. This greatly increased Chinese analyst numbers. In Beijing, they even aggressively stated that after the United States struck China, they are now pretending to be oil altogether. And so, according to the advisor to the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Wu Xinbo, in the summer there were finally signs of a thaw in relations between the United States and China, especially after the trade negotiations in Madrid in September and the subsequent phone conversation between Xi Jinping and Trump. In the September phone conversation with Trump, Xi Jinping even commented positively on these negotiations, but warned the American president against taking actions that could undermine the progress achieved by both sides. And just 10 days after that phone conversation, Washington significantly tightens export restrictions, extending the same controls to subsidiaries of already sanctioned companies from China and other countries. As a result, the number of firms facing restrictions in China has almost doubled. There were about 3,000 before, and now there are more. Next, I'll quote Yu Xinbo. Trump is acting in bad faith. If, after more than half a year of interacting with China, the United States still hasn't realized that taking such measures against China will have serious consequences, then I would say that the people on Trump's team are completely incompetent. Interestingly, China's Ministry of Commerce supported this view on Sunday, giving additional examples, such as the United States' plans to charge Chinese ships docking at American ports. There is also a quote from the Ministry of Commerce. These actions by the United States have seriously damaged China's interests and undermined the atmosphere of bilateral economic and trade negotiations, calling on Washington to preserve the hard-won progress. As a result, after 6 months of negotiations, we are once again on the edge of the abyss. But now the stakes are even higher, because both sides now understand the consequences. And China, as you know, has practically monopolized the global supply of rare earth metals, a group of 17 minerals, especially dominating in their processing and refining. By the way, I talked in great detail about these rare earth metals, why they are so important, and why China has monopolized this market in a separate episode on my YouTube channel. So if you're interested, be sure to check out the channel and watch it. And now, China's new rules not only increase the number of elements subject to Beijing's export controls, but also expand restrictions aimed at production technologies and the use of earnings. Well, for example, the rules apply to foreign companies seeking to supply rare earth metals produced in China or processed using Chinese technologies to other countries. This is a very complicated scheme, but it can really hit not only the United States but also many countries around the world very hard. The new restrictions have already caused shock in the global industry and in the supply chains of technological products. Because basically these rules sound like this if you really simplify it. If some company in Europe, Asia, Africa, it doesn't matter where, that receives rare earth metals from China, cooperates with Americans. And if somewhere the Chinese see in this chain that the rare earth metal going to this company somehow in the form of, I don't know, a semiconductor or something else ends up with the Americans, then this company falls under export restrictions. And of course, this company will now have to seriously consider who to work with, Americans or Chinese. If the Americans are the market and the Chinese supply the rare earth metal, then what's the point of producing anything if there's no market to sell it to? And if the market brings you the risk of sanctions from China, that's also a risk. It's basically a stalemate. After China introduced unprecedented licensing requirements for rare earth metals in April, factories around the world, from the automotive industry to the defense sector, reported shortages of critical minerals. The new rule, which also affects rare earth minerals used in the production of modern semiconductors, could also threaten the global boom in artificial intelligence, the training of which depends on these chips. In response to growing global concerns, the Ministry of Commerce of China stated that tightening the rules is not an export ban, and it will issue licenses for those activities that meet the requirements set in Beijing. But essentially, Beijing's measures reflect the restrictions that Washington has imposed on semiconductor production for many years. This has restricted the export of microchips and equipment for their production to China, including those made in third countries using American technologies. It's a perfectly mirrored situation. This is a United States export control measure known as the Foreign Direct Product Rule, which was introduced back during the Biden administration. And although Beijing has long criticized the United States for using the so-called long-arm jurisdiction against it, this week China made it clear that it is ready to use a similar tactic, but this time against the United States. As a result, Trump seems to have slightly changed the tone of his position regarding China and in his message on the Truth Social website. Trump stated that the United States would like to help China, not harm it. Don't worry about China, everything will be fine. Well, the unpleasant news for Trump is that China has learned Donald Trump's own tactics, and now Beijing is raising the stakes and waiting for its opponent to flinch. And the blow to rare earths is exactly that, a blow to rare earths to show who's better. Don't start a trade war, because it will hurt absolutely everyone, and then it will be too late to look for someone to blame. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's it for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.